So hey y'all, I'm back with another video. So tonight's video is yet again another Chioma Chats video podcast edition. So by the title, we're going to be talking about the Louisiana State University women's basketball team and their big championship win against the University of Iowa. Now, I'll be real, I don't keep up with any extension of basketball, not even the NBA, but this story has been all over the blogs and I have been seeing different clips of women's basketball this season. So one of the standout players for LSU is second-year student Angel Reese. Angel is from Baltimore, Maryland, and she has literally been the talk of women's basketball all season long. Like I said, I really don't keep up with basketball, but I have noticed clips from different sports pages come up on my timeline and For You page this season, and I can't really help but notice the black female athletes that are doing really well. So according to Google, Angel Reese is an American college basketball player for the LSU Tigers. She attended St. Francis Academy in Baltimore, Maryland, where she was awarded the McDonald's All-American Honors in 2020 and was ranked the #2 player in her class by ESPN. She is 20 years old and 6'3", and I think Angel's placement in sports as of right now is super interesting. And it's interesting because here we have a black girl who is unapologetic, raw, very talented in her sport, beautiful if I may add, and has been making so much noise all season about her approach to women's collegiate basketball. And at her highest moment, which is winning a championship, a national championship, this is a Division I athlete, so she is the best of the best, but in her highest moment, it is being overshadowed by a racial double standard. So on the other hand, we have Caitlyn Clark, who plays for the University of Iowa and is also very talented in women's collegiate basketball. She is deemed probably the best player in women's college basketball. When she shoots, she's not missing. And she's also made just as much noise in the sport this season as Angel Reese. Many sports commentators claim Caitlyn Clark as the Steph Curry of women's basketball, which I do get that is supposed to be a compliment, but I just don't like when they say that a woman is the female version to a man. How about she just is who she is? But yes, that is supposed to be a positive thing. Nonetheless, throughout this entire season, Caitlyn has been very competitive and she's made this gesture of the John Cena "you can't see me," which is something that we all used to do in like the 4th grade, as it is one of John Cena's trademark gestures. And if you grew up on WWE like me, you most definitely know what that is. And so Caitlyn, who is this white girl from Des Moines, Iowa, has been throwing up this hand sign, and people have been seeing it as her respectfully gloating about her basketball talents, because in the world of sports, it does get competitive and you do big up yourself when you make a 3-pointer or a touchdown or you land your tumbling passes. Y'all know I was a cheerleader, so shout out to cheer. So in the championship game the other night, there was a surprising upset that LSU beat Iowa. And I think most people expected Iowa to win because, like I said, Caitlyn Clark is just that good of a player and her team has been consistent and also undefeated all season long until this loss. So after LSU won, Angel Reese decides to mimic the John Cena "you can't see me" gesture and throw it back at Caitlyn Clark, which to me was just a motion of competitiveness because it is lighthearted to throw somebody's stuff back at them, especially when they've been doing it throughout this season. And Angel Reese has also been berated all season for her actions. But as suspected by the American society, when a black girl does it, it's a problem. It's cool when they do it. It's definitely a problem when we do it. Of course, many people, both black and white, came in defense of Angel Reese because her backlash is very unwarranted, very biased, and such a huge double standard. And I wanted to talk about this because I think this is an example that is going to open up society's eyes once again about the racial injustice that is always present for black women when we are the minority. So I've broken this video down into one overall main talking point. So without further ado, let's get right into this video.
So Clark up to 9 boards, but she turns it over, and it's Louisville basketball. Daring her to shoot from 3.
You see her? She's not even looking at her. She swiped away with her hand. Shoot the basketball. Watch Caitlyn Clark, left side. She doesn't even look at her. Waves her hand as if to say, I don't care about you. I'm not defending you. So thank you.
It's cool when they do it. It's a problem when I do it. Fuck 'em.
So my one talking point is racial double standard. So it's clear here that the double standard is obviously the fact that Caitlyn Clark of Iowa, a white girl who was going to be perceived a certain way, is able to actively use this hand gesture, which if you think about it, technically it is taunting other players. Yet Angel Reese of LSU gets backlash for it. Side note, when I was in high school, LSU was one of my top 3 schools. I wanted to go to Howard, LSU, or FAMU. I wish I would have just listened to myself and made my parents allow me to go to either of the 3, but I just remember searching LSU back then and always keeping up with them in little ways, so it's good to see LSU win. My would have been alma mater. But back to these athletes, I worked in college sports, I worked in Division I college sports all through college, and they've always talked about sportsmanship because these student athletes are supposed to be some of the higher up students in the social aspect of a campus. And what I mean by that is when you look at the student athletes at a Division I college where sports is really big, there's a lot of media coverage of these athletes. So therefore, they're like public figures. They are media trained, they go through seminars on how to behave, they do have restrictions with their social media presence and their on the field or on the court presence. They're supposed to be this community hero. Now behind the scenes, a lot of these kids are just like you and I, and they have a life, but to the public, they're supposed to be perceived in a certain way. So the double standard again is obvious when Caitlyn Clark, this white girl who was going to be perceived as innocent, dainty, competitive, a championship or whatever, has previously done this move during this season with no backlash, no upheaval, no pushback, nothing. She has been getting praised all season long, and furthermore, she has been projected to be the NCAA women's basketball championship winner along with her team, and I'm pretty sure she would have been voted most outstanding player had she had won. That is the hype that she gets. That is the pedestal that she's placed on. But Angel Reese has been a target of the media all season long. They've critiqued her for every little thing, and this is the part that I probably saw all season long, even though I didn't watch any games, but I definitely saw Angel Reese's name trending and how many people deemed her as ghetto or unsportsmanlike or aggressive. And I've noticed how these negative connotations are only pushed on black women for the same exact actions that a white woman does. And it comes down to perception, because when people look at melanin skin, for some reason there's this instant accordance to negative things. It's just the way how society is. But I feel like this example is going to start to expose how many times this has happened and how hypocritical society is. So I read so many articles on this, but one of the ones that really summarized this was an article from Vox.com. I'm going to skip around the article a little bit, but it reads, "The taunt that eclipsed the NCAA Women's Basketball Championship explained. Angel Reese, Caitlyn Clark, and the respectability politics of women's basketball. On Sunday, April 2nd, Louisiana State University defeated the University of Iowa and won the NCAA Women's College Basketball National Championship, an accomplishment that should be one of the biggest women's sports stories of the year. But all anyone could talk about is what happened in the last few seconds. In those waning moments, LSU star power forward Angel Reese pointed out her ring finger and waved her own hand in front of her face in the direction of Caitlyn Clark, the best player on Iowa's team. To those familiar with hand gestures in basketball, this was Reese's way of telling Clark that her team won, that LSU would be getting the championship ring, and that Reese herself was unguardable. To those specifically familiar with Clark and women's college basketball this season, the hand wave is a callback to Clark's own dismissal of her previous opponents. Like any good feud, the more backstory you know, the juicier it gets. As a supporter of women's rights, this was also the rare moment where you could simultaneously support women's wrongs. But some didn't see Reese's actions as deliciously scandalous, and her actions didn't happen in a bubble. Her taunt ignited criticisms from haters about her lack of quote-unquote class and how Reese, who is black, should have conducted herself in the face of imminent victory. Her detractors would have liked to see her win quietly and politely without theatrics. However, this outpouring of concern about how women athletes should behave when they win wasn't nearly as much of an issue when Clark, who is white, was steamrolling, trash talking, and mocking the competition. Curious. Angel Reese, Caitlyn Clark, and the impossible double standard. Within moments of LSU's victory, Reese's taunt went viral. Not unlike Clark's, they got very different reception. However, instead of being seen as cocky or confident or fun, Reese's actions were seen by a vocal few as poor sportsmanship. Keith Olbermann, a former ESPN SportsCenter anchor and MSNBC commentator, called Reese a effing idiot. Dave Portnoy, owner of Barstool Sports, echoed, calling Reese a classless piece of ish. Olbermann and Portnoy are, by their own accord, grown men. Most of the people negatively chiming in on Reese's actions are also grown men. They have appointed themselves as arbiters of this 20-year-old woman's behavior. In an attempt to plead their case against Reese, they pointed out that Clark hadn't actually taunted Reese during the game, and that Clark's antics that Reese was copying were actually from the aforementioned Louisville game. If Reese were playing for Louisville or one of the teams that Clark had directly taunted, their argument pretends. Then it'd be okay that Reese do what she did. did. But the argument of if this situation were completely different, things would be different sort of falls apart when you consider that Reese's detractors were quiet when Clark was doing the taunting. When Clark was gesturing that an entire team of Louisville Cardinals couldn't guard her, no one was calling her a classless piece of ish. Actually, she was praised. ESPN ran an entire segment on Clark, calling her the queen of clapbacks, complete with crown emojis. From Angel Reese to Serena Williams to Simone Biles to multiple instances in the NFL and NBA, black athletes have not only had to win on the court, but do so in a manner that audiences, but in particular grown white men like Oberman and Portnoy, determine respectable. They can't be too confident or they'll be seen as arrogant. They can't be too passionate or they'll be deemed angry. They can't talk about their mental health without having their character called into question. Yet when athletes like Clark or Larry Bird or Novak Djokovic or Tom Brady flash the same behavior, it's a revered part of their legacy or a passionate commitment to the game. Female athletes like Reese and Clark are also battling an added implicit layer of sexism. Some, grown men especially, believe there's no room to trash talk in women's sports because women are perceived to be better, gentler, and above the fray. Meanwhile, trash talking and vitriol are seen as an established part of men's sports and its most compelling rivalries. This stripe of benevolent sexism undercuts competitors like Clark and Reese, who are conducting themselves with more dignity and toughness than how they're being talked about. Okay, so there's two things I want to touch on in regards to this article and the situation as a whole. Not only is this a double standard in regards to race, but this is also a double standard in regards to gender. And I often tell people, when you're a black woman, you're like the minority of the minorities. First of all, you're a woman, so you gotta knock off points for that. Then secondly, you're black, so take off even more points. And don't let you be brown skin or dark skin. You're gonna have to cut off even more points. And let you be some type of foreign or an immigrant or have any other non-American heritage, it's like quadruple whammy for you. Story of my life. But in this case with a black woman, to see the media be so hypocritical is astonishing. And I'm actually happy that this happened because it gets to expose the racist and unfair truth that many Americans live under. Caitlyn Clark gets to be this coy, competitive, and confident player for a gesture that, like I said, I don't even think is disrespectful. It's just simply talking yo ish for real. But Angel Reese has to get all of these negative characteristics pinned on her, and she's just supposed to shake it off and be okay with that. And then for the second half, on the flip side, you have grown men making comments about this in such a demeaning way to this young woman, as if male athletes don't react in worse ways. I mean, what the hell is a John Cena you can't see me move in comparison to what you see in the NFL when they get into it? And of course they write it off as, oh, they're men and that's just how men are and men get aggressive. But I feel like in an athletic contest, everybody's aggressive. There's no woman who plays any sport who goes into said sport without some type of aggression. And aggression is not always a negative thing. Aggression could just be an extreme form of passion that is executed in a physical manner like a sport. I'm gonna bring up cheerleading again because I feel like it doesn't get the respect that it deserves, but in order to do cheer, that sport is 80% mental and 20% physical. You have to be able to trust that you're gonna flip your body, you're gonna catch the girls, you're gonna throw the girls, and it's literally you against gravity for 2.5 minutes. And you have to attack that with an aggressive mindset because you have to be able to beat your mental. You have to be able to conquer your mental so that you can execute the stunts, the flips, and the chants. So even in a sport like cheerleading, which people deem as not a sport in some cases, aggression does exist. I don't like this idea that women can't be passionate about sports in the same way that men can. Just because men obviously have more testosterone, bigger physical endowments, and way more attention in all of their sports, doesn't mean that female athletes don't feel the same passion that they do for their own craft. Let's not forget how a few years ago, Serena Williams was really slaughtered by the media after she lost the US Open women's final back in 2018 to Naomi Osaka. There was an Australian artist who created this picture of Serena Williams throwing a tantrum, and the racial undertones to me was clear as day because it painted her to look unruly, angry, and completely unsportsmanlike, when in reality, it was clear as day that during that match, there was many mistakes on behalf of the officiating, and any athlete would have been frustrated, but her frustration gets turned into an attack on not only her character, but her physical qualities, and one of them being her race. There's a tendency in America, and again, probably anywhere where black people are the minority, to view black people and especially black women as inhumane, as if we are animalistic people who don't know how to be civil and don't get the same credit for acting on our emotions. Humans cry, Humans get upset, humans get frustrated, humans are passionate, humans can be aggressive. Every human has the capability of expressing these emotions. But through the lens of race, the perception is always different, and that has to change. I feel like when I watch NFL games, I see a lot of physical aggression that just gets written off as boys being boys, men being men, and that because football is so physical, it's okay for the men to react in a physical way. And I actually agree, because if I'm colliding with somebody every play for 4 hours straight, I'm gonna have aggression built up in me that I want to let out. But I just don't understand why women don't get the same benefit of the doubt for being just as passionate about their sport, when just like any men, a lot of these women have been playing basketball or tennis or soccer or even cheerleading since they were babies. You're so used to doing the same thing all year long since you've been a kid that it does become part of your identity, and you're going to be very passionate towards it. I hate when people tell athletes that, oh, it's just a game, there'll be another one. No, let people be passionate about their sport and their industry, because as much as it's entertainment for the rest of us to watch these games, this is a lot of people's lives and their careers, and it's a part of their identity. As for Angel Reese, keep doing you, sis. She's only a sophomore, so she has 2 more years of eligibility to play to make more noise, get more respect, and even win more championships. I also wanted to shout out to another LSU player, Flau'jae Johnson. I remember watching Flau'jae on the show The Rap Game back in the day. She started off as a child rapper and got a lot of buzz from that show, and I never knew that she was into basketball, but to see her play at a Division I level and she was voted Freshman of the Year, congrats to her as well. It's really good to see black women in this sport. Y'all know I'm 5'10", so I've always gotten the question, do you play basketball? And no, I never did, never dribbled a basketball outside of gym class, but I'm happy to see these black women because for obvious reasons, it's just good to see black women be the face of a lot of different things these days, including sports. All in all, the double standard is clear, and I hope this was a lesson to the American society that it's definitely cool when white people do things, but when black people do them, there's a whole different approach, and it's unfair, it's unjust, and it's unfortunate, honestly. I just want Angel Reese and the entire LSU women's basketball team to know that don't let this BS double standard outshine y'all's moment. To be honest, what I should do is dedicate my song Ballin' to LSU women's basketball. Somebody tell me how I can do that, because that would be super big. But nonetheless, congratulations, ladies. Yes, this is a double standard, but y'all did deserve to win. You deserve to celebrate. And in reality, they really can't see you. So that is it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed. Please let me know your commentary on my commentary down below. What do you think? What do you know? Let me know. My song Ceremony is out on all streaming. Check the links down below and make sure y'all stream my new song. And lastly, don't forget to follow me on all of my social media networks, and I will see y'all in my next video. Bye, y'all.
Man, I went and got my teeth done. 10 minutes with him, now his 15 minutes is cut. Never ever make a nigga think that he up. Cause you a queen and I'm a queen, now shout out to Latifah. Security in the back with a racket like Serena. Ex-nigga crying, laugh at him like a hyena. Like, damn, what you saying, daddy? Yeah, I know I got a fatty. Pussy talking to him, talk my shit, yeah, I be getting catty. Play with me, I bet you won't. Fatty on his chest and now he calling me a stethoscope. Pink fit, look thick, I'm looking good, incredible. Cut a nigga off, I'm coming through like a semicolon. Mansion in the motherland, December come, that's where we going. Body have my niggas frozen, niggas put my picture up and yeah, they go and get the lotion. And I'm the one they check up on, feeling so lucky, getting green like a leprechaun. Run a few errands with the bag with the checkers on it. Push it on the floor because it's mine and I'm stepping on it. Get the cheese and keep it wet, so yeah, he call me macaroni. Niggas on my line and now they begging me for matrimony. Detroit nigga touchdown and we to the Coney. Pat it up.